All right, we're back. 100 yards of football. Few technical difficulties that we got taken care of. My fault exclusively. I'm your host, Harper LeBel, along with your co-host, Vincent Turner. Vincent, a week zero. I don't know what week zero means anymore. I've tried to figure it out. All it means to me is that it counts, even though you don't think that it counts. There's no NFL stuff going on, and college football is here. Welcome, college football, Vincent.
I'm going to say this about week zero. The people down on the flats, I think that's what they call them, the 404, Georgia Tech is back in the house. They shocked the world last week with a 24-21 win over Florida State. And my question is, since Georgia Tech had that really upset last week, are they a legitimate college football playoff team now? Brent Key has done a hell of a job. And my other take bet from last week, SMU. Now, this is not the Pony Express, no question about it. But I told y'all there was a player that I was looking at last week. His name, R.J. Maryland. Daddy, 3-time Super Bowl champion with the Dallas Cowboys. Father played baseball in the late 50s as roommate of Lou Brock. What did the young man do last week, Harper?
He brought receptions.
Yep. 8 receptions, 162 yards, 1 touchdown. Maybe down there at SMU in Dallas, Texas, now Pony Express 2 is going to happen.
Well, that'd be amazing. My take very quickly with the Georgia Tech Florida State game is Florida State done? How badly does that affect their path to get into? They have to win the ACC now. And they've already got a loss. That's an interesting concept, at least in terms of last year where Florida State was, and they're going, hey, we should be in this playoff, to where they may be excluded after week 1. Now, I don't hope that happens, and for all you Seminole fans out there, we're just throwing things out there. That's what we do here on 100 yards of football, and we're going to talk a little bit about our Super 7 in just a moment. But before we do, let's look at what some of the local teams here in the state of Georgia have going on this week. Kennesaw State is at the University of Texas San Antonio. Valdosta visits Albany. You have Boise State, and they are a playoff contender, at least preseason-wise. They will be at Georgia Southern. You have Samford heading out to University Stadium against the West Georgia Wolves. And on Thursday at 4 o'clock, Presbyterian plays at the Mercer Bears. How about that? At 5-Star Stadium there at Mercer. They open their season tomorrow, actually. It's on Thursday at 4 o'clock. But one other game, you mentioned Georgia Tech a little bit earlier, Vincent. Georgia State will travel that 10 to 15-minute bus ride from their campus over to the Plains, and they'll be at Bobby Dodd Stadium on Saturday.
Yes, sir. And I take one tidbit from all those games you just mentioned. The game that sticks out to me is Kennesaw State at Texas San Antonio, because Kennesaw State is not going to move up with the big boys.
Yep.
They're coming from the FCS to the FBS. And then, of course, Georgia State and Georgia Tech. Georgia State, Dale McGee, is his first game as the head coach over there at Georgia State. And right now, I want to see how Georgia Tech is going to bounce back with their big win over Florida State last week. Where's Brent Key going to have this football team? Is Georgia Tech legitimate? Are they a top 25 team? And I leave it back to you, Mr. Harper.
Yeah, I'll be there on Saturday evening. The kickoff is at 8 o'clock. We don't know what we're going to expect out of Georgia State. A lot of new players coming in, but we saw what many people will say is a part of a miracle game that nobody expected Tech and the Yellow Jackets to do what they did in Dublin. Will they have a hangover when they come over? Will they be playing their A game? Will they show that they have dominance, like Vincent said, to be able to contend with the big boys in the top 25? We'll find out here soon enough. But let's go with our weekly Super 7. Vincent, our first game here at noon on Saturday on ABC. The Clemson Tigers travel to Athens. They're taking on the number 1 team in the nation in the University of Georgia.
Well, actually, Harper, they playing over in the Dome, the Mercedes-Benz on Saturday. Just a little small correction there. But Georgia, Clemson, rivalries, histories of the game. One thing about the Georgia Bulldogs, and I told you, Harper, leading up to this show and all week, I have never seen a football team that's so quality of depth and talent since the 72 USC Trojans. I'm just being honest. strength at the quarterback position. Carson Beck, top 10 NFL draft pick. Some people saying he's the best quarterback in the draft. All 5 of their offensive starters are going to play in the National Football League. Ratledge, Fairchild, Green. I don't have to go no more. Their wide receiving group is deep. Defensively, they got Mikael Williams, one of the best defensive players in the country. And then when you look over at Georgia, look what Kirby Smart has done in his 8 years. It's just unbelievable. Right now, I don't mean to really offend anybody down there in Tuscaloosa, but it's good that Nick Saban retired because this young man right now is the best coach in college football. The Clemson Tigers. This is a huge football game for y'all. Dabo Swinney, I got 2 words for you. You are in trouble because you don't want to go to the transfer portal. But I'm going to say this about Clemson coming into this game. It's time for their 5-star quarterback, Cade Klubnik, to step it up. Outstanding football player when he was high school in the state of Texas. Last year, he was up, down, 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But the one thing I like about Clemson in this football game, they got a D-line that's got 3 legitimate NFL prospects, T.J. Parker, Pete Woods, and DeMonte Capehart. Going to be an interesting game. For me, the Dogs going to keep rolling. The 72 USC Trojans are going to be in the house on Saturday.
One of the great teams of all time, and we may be looking at one right now, the Georgia Bulldogs from last year, because they didn't get into the championship series. They've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And I think Kirby's one of those guys that makes that chip last week after week after week, and you get the best out of your guys. Just an interesting tidbit, if you're interested, 29.8 points per game is what Clemson averaged last year. Georgia was at 40.1. They were number 5 in the nation, Georgia was. Clemson was 53rd. Points against, in other words, how hard is it to score against our defense? Clemson was 24th in the nation at 19.9, but Georgia was 9th in the nation at 16.6. How did the recruiting go for Georgia Bulldogs during the offseason? They have 17 4-star players. 14 of them are in the ESPN top 300. 7 total for Clemson. They had 11 4-star players, but only 7 of them were ESPN top 300. I'm with you, Vincent. I'm going with the Georgia Bulldogs. I think that they're going to prove very early and very often this season why they are the number 1 team in the nation. Let's go to the next game at 3:30 from Columbus, Ohio. The Ohio State Buckeyes, number 2 in the country, will take on in-state rival Akron. Vincent, your thoughts on this game?
Akron, your head coach is Joe Moorhead, former head coach of Mississippi State, former offensive coordinator with the Penn State Nittany Lions. All I can say is, Mr. Moorhead, in your 3 years at Akron, you are 7-47. That's a lot of football games to lose. You got a star receiver in Alex Adams, so you got 1 quality player. I just hope that the Buckeyes don't run the score up on you on Saturday. I hope they don't put more than 60 on you. As far as the Ohio State Buckeyes, Ryan Day, you must have been pretty desperate, man, because you went back and got your mentor, Chip Kelly, to run the offense and be the offensive coordinator, and he left his job at UCLA. But when you look at this Ohio State team, reason I'm going to go back to Ryan Day, y'all took a lot of money out of that NIL. Y'all got a lot of players that y'all paid for. And all I can say is this, is that the 6-day super sophomores are not coming back through the door. Tatum, Rex Kern, Jim Otis. But when you look at the Buckeyes, the one key point I'm going to bring up here, we know they got NFL talent all over the field. No question about it. Running backs, D-line, receivers, they got Jermaine Smith, and we talking about high schools, the number 1 high school recruit in the country at the wide receiver position. But the one thing I'm going to leave you with this, Harper, they got Will Howard, the transfer quarterback from Kansas State. He's supposed to be the guy that's supposed to save Ohio State this year and win the national championship for him. But my main point, he could not keep his job at Kansas State because he lost to a true freshman and Avery Johnson who beat him out. So I'm saying Ohio State and Ryan Day, pressure, pipes might be busted in Columbus because it's all like this. National championship or Ryan Day will not be the coach at this time next year in Columbus.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting how he merges together portal, new recruits, the amount of money from NIL and how they come together as a team. That'll be a very interesting story throughout the course of the year. 5-star athletes. They got 3 of them. 3 of the 5-star, the top players in the nation. They have 15 4-stars, 16 total from the ESPN 300. Ohio State is loaded with talent. They are loaded. Their defense last year, they gave up an average of 11.0 points per game. They were number 2 in the country. They can play. So it'll be tough for Akron. They're going to get a check, and they're going to leave there hoping that nobody got hurt. But Ohio State should win that handily, being the number 2 team in the nation. On Fox at 12 o'clock on Saturday, Penn State, who's number 8 in the nation, they travel to Morgantown. They're going to West Virginia. Your thoughts?
This is going to be a real hard knocking football game right here. You got Penn State. I'm going to start with them. James Franklin, you've been there 10 years, baby. It's time for you to get your team over the hump. This is a team that can make the college football playoffs. They have that much talent. Your quarterback, Drew Aller, it's time for him to be that guy that everybody's saying is a legitimate NFL prospect. But one thing about Penn State, they're going to play defense. They got Mr. Tom Arnold, former head coach of Indiana, now running the defense. And they got a real good defensive player that I think is going to be a top 10 pick in Abdullah Carter. But you know what? They're playing a West Virginia team that turned it around. A young man that a lot of people we know locally in this area used to be the head coach at Troy. Mm-hmm. Then he went to West Virginia. 3 seasons up there, didn't go so well. It was up and down, and he was on the hot seat last year, Neil Brown. But he turned it around up there in Morgantown. He's got a quarterback that's going to be real nice. Remember this name, Garrett Green. Remember this running back. That's very nice, C.J. Donaldson. This is a West Virginia team that Penn State, if you go in there sleeping, you're going to get beat. James Franklin, it's your time to put up. It's time to get in the 12-team playoff. And West Virginia, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated teams coming into this season.
You mentioned Coach Brown. He's a guy that has a real tough time recruiting in that area because people like Penn State, you got Pitt, you've got all these other folks that are going to poach some of the kids that you would love to have that are close to you and would like to play for you. Last year, they only brought in 1 4-star, and 21 out of their 22 were 3-star athletes there at West Virginia. On the other hand, Penn State, 0 5-star kids. They had 13 4-stars and 10 3-stars. 10 of the ESPN 700 ended up going to Penn State. They really wanted to be a Nittany Lion for a number of different reasons. That's going to be one of the closer games, I think, but I do believe Penn State gets one on the road. How about my alma mater? Vincent, we're going to talk a little bit about Colorado State, not because of Colorado State, but because they go to Texas. What do you think is going to happen there in Austin?
Well, I'm going to say this about Colorado State. I like the head coach, Jay Norrell. Plus, I like a player that got the wide receiver position, Torrey Horton. Lit Colorado up last year on national television. And I like their safety, Henry Blackburn, who knocked Travis Henry out in that Colorado game. Reminds me a little bit of Chuck Cecil back in the day. But you know what about Colorado State? I know y'all needed the money. No disrespect to you, Mr. Harper LeBel, because you're alum, but you're not coming through the doors. And you're going to Texas, where you got another team that's going into a new conference, the SEC. And you got a coach right now that's from the state of California, where you from, Mr. LeBel, by the name of Steve Sarkisian. And he got a little taste of that success last year with the Longhorns. And he brings back a really talented quarterback in Quinn Ewens. But most of all, what I'm impressed with, he lost all his receiving group last year in A.D. Mitchell, Jordan Willington, both of them now in the NFL. And he went out in the portal and got Isaiah Bond from Alabama. He got Matthew Golden from Houston. And he got Silas Bolden out of Oregon State. Those guys is just as good. And Texas still has a high-level running back in Jayden Blue. And they got the best offensive tackle, they say, in the 2025 NFL draft in Kevin Banks. In all respect to you, Harper, and I hope you don't be upset with me after the day, Texas is going to roll. They might bring Bevo out there and score a touchdown on Saturday. I'm sorry.
Well, Bevo only outweighs Cam the Ram, our mascot, which we probably won't even bring by about 800 pounds. So we'll see how that goes. If it's the battle of the mascots, I think Bevo wins hands down. I just hope that they kind of Sarkisian and the rest of the Longhorn offense shuts it down a little bit after 42, maybe 49 points, because I think they're going to be able to score. Colorado State's not in the same level yet, and I think Texas has something to prove. The biggest reason is, as you mentioned just a moment ago, they're entering the SEC for the first time, and they have to win. They want to dominate, and this is going to be a very exciting time there for Longhorn fans and everybody in Austin. Hey, Vincent, let's go back in the memory banks just a little bit. Can you remember a time when Miami and Florida was a big game? Will it be on Saturday at 3 o'clock on ABC?
When you go back in the memory bank, you got to go back to the 80s, and you think about all those players in the 90s. You think the Miamis, the Eddie Browns, the Alonzo Highsmiths, the Jerome Browns. That was Florida, Miami at the highest level, Michael Irvin. Then you think about Florida under Steve Spurrier, Danny Wolford, Chris Doering. You know what I'm saying?
Emmett.
You got, Emmett. So many great players during this time. But looking at both programs right now was really sad. Both of them are struggling and trying to get over the top. I'm gonna start with the Hurricanes. You're always doing what's that thing they do to you, right? You went back and you hired a guy by the name of Mario Cristobal who had tremendous success in them late 80 teams that won national championships. And I thought he would, in his 3 years, have that program turned around. But what really sticks out to me, his poor coaching ability last year, and especially the Georgia Tech game that they lost, that was on him. But I would say this. He went out there and got the best quarterback in the portal. Cam Ward is a baller.
Yeah.
He went out and got the best running back in the portal. Damian Martinez, who gained over 1,100 yards at Oregon State. So this is going to be a Miami team that's going to be very good from an explosive standpoint. Then you look at Florida. I like Billy Napier, man. I think it's a phenomenal football coach. But I always say this in my mind. Why do you always get in a hurry when you want to be with the big boys when you know the big boys are struggling? Remember when Lane Kiffin was at Tennessee and he wanted to get back to USC? What happened? He wasn't ready for that job at USC, and then USC had recruiting restrictions. Well, you look at Billy Napier. He went to Florida. And he's a good football coach because he turned it around down there in Louisiana. And you know that you was going to have a problem because the SEC is getting better. And then on top of that, Dan Mullen left you with nothing because Dan Mullen didn't recruit at a level like the Gators have been in the past. Tebow, Brandon Sykes, Percy Harvin. So now we at a status where right now, Billy Napier, you've got one of the toughest schedules in the country. And it don't look like you're going to win 6 or 7 games. And I'm sorry, you're not going to be the head coach at Florida at the end of the year. But I tell you what, in this football game, maybe you can change some people's eyes. You got a good quarterback in Graham Mertz, and you got a hell of a football player on the offense side of the ball, Eugene Wilson III. He's a tremendous playmaker. But you know what? I see the Canes rolling. I see Mario Cristobal. He wants to be on a national level. And what impressed me one more time about the Canes, they got the best quarterback in the country in the portal, Cam Ward. That gentleman can play. I'm going with the Canes. It's going to be nice.
Miami is number 19 in the nation. They averaged 31.5 points last year, which was 39th. They gave up 22.1, which was 40th. Those aren't you numbers. Those are different. That's something that's not what Miami Hurricane football is all about. On the other side, Florida, they averaged 28.5. That was 60th in the nation. And they gave up 27.6 points a game. That was 79th. Neither one of these teams are where they would like to be, but a win against one of those in-state opponents would certainly get them on the right place. I'm thinking Miami might go into Florida, but actually, more to think about it, I think the Gators pull one out at home. Here's another team that needs to pull one out at home, and that is number 20, Texas A&M, College Station. They're visited by Notre Dame. Vincent, Notre Dame on the road at Texas A&M. Your thoughts?
Pressure is on up there in South Bend. Touchdown, Jesus. Please don't get it misunderstood because Marcus Freeman, you've been there 3 years, and Notre Dame is that type of program. They think championships year in and year out. I don't care if they haven't had one, since 1988, when Lou Holtz last was the head coach. Yep. But I tell you what, I love this Notre Dame team simply because I think they got a quarterback, family, that can put them on the top. Riley Leonard can play football. The key with him, if he stays healthy, Notre Dame is going to be a playoff team. Because one other point about Marcus Freeman, remember he was a linebacker at Ohio State, so he knows defense. Notre Dame is going to field one of the best top 5 defenses in the country. Howard Cross III at D tackle, Xavier Watts at free safety, NFL talent, and Benjamin Morrison, outstanding corner, might be the #1 corner in the country. All you got to do is go back and put on the game film how he played against Marvin Harrison Jr. last year when Ohio State came to South Bend. Now with Texas A&M. New sheriff in town. New sheriff, his name is Mike Elko. Things are not going to be different in College Station. They're going to be rocking because you know what about head coach Mike Elko? He plays defense. And I like the Aggies. #1, they got a quarterback. Again, if he stays healthy, Connor Wagon, the Aggies are going to be tough. And the one thing I like about this game is that, remember this, Riley Leonard played under Mike Elko at Duke for 3 seasons. So I think that's an advantage a little bit for Texas A&M. And then Texas A&M got the #1 defensive player in the portal. His name is Nick Scorson. All he did last year at Purdue, I think 10 sacks, and he had 14 tackles for loss. And the Aggies are going to play defense. And remember this that I'm learning about Texas A&M. They got a lot of loan money down there in College Station. Don't get fooled by the 12th man. And they want to win. This football game has got college football playoff applications on it. Let's be real.
Yep.
Both of these teams can make the college playoffs, and both of these teams have good football coaches. I expect it's going to be a real close game from a defensive standpoint, and which team is able to stop the other team's quarterback, because both quarterbacks are NFL draft prospects. Riley Leonard over there at Notre Dame, Connor Wegman over there at Texas A&M. It's going to come down to defense and which quarterback plays well. But I'm going to tell you what, I'm leaning with A&M. Oh, let me stop. I got to go with Notre Dame. I like Riley Leonard. He played at Duke last year and had that program winning 9 to 10 games. And Mike Elko being the coach, and he got hurt. Duke might have won the ACC last year if Riley Leonard would have stayed healthy.
Notre Dame has, you mentioned defense. Let me give you a real quick stat there on the Irish. 16.6 points a game they gave up. That's #8 in the country. Their offense, they were in the top 10 as well. They averaged 38.7. So with a new roster, a little bit different. I know those stats don't always apply in the next year, but I'm just saying their history right now, the team identity will be feeding off of that. I think the Irish will get a win. I think it'll be close. And if Texas A&M loses week 1 with the schedule that they have in the SEC on the western side, my goodness, they don't want to be average, and they may end up being average if they lose this game. They will be fighting for their lives. Another interesting point: Jerome Bettis is a recruit. No, not the dad, his son, Jerome Bettis Jr. from College Park, Georgia, at Woodward Academy, is a freshman at the University of Notre Dame. I might want to mention also LeVar Arrington Jr. is at Penn State. His is his freshman year as well. So some key recruits. Speaking of recruits, the top 3 recruits at the University of Southern California, Julian Lewis is out of Carrollton. Jaden Perlott is out of Buford High School, and Kendarius Riddick is out of Thomas County High School. They're all Georgia boys. They're playing for the USC Trojans. Vincent, USC travels to Allegiant Field there in Las Vegas. It's not a home game, but it'll feel a lot more like a home game for the SC Trojans than for the LSU Tigers, unless LSU is able to put something together. What are your thoughts on this game?
You know what sticks out in this football game? I'm glad it's being played on Sunday night. It's in Las Vegas. You look at both teams, look at both head coaches. Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma, took the job at SC, went out to the Pac-12, had Caleb Williams. We know that story from now. Caleb won the Heisman Trophy, and the next year they went 8-5. Lincoln Riley, you might be a great offensive mind, man. You'll coach, 3 first-round NFL overall picks. You had 3 Heisman trophies, but it bothers me, and it really amazes to me that you haven't had a defense. So what do? In the offseason, you go over and you hire UCLA's defensive coordinator, Deontay Lynn. Okay, but you still got the same personnel.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at this too. Caleb Williams gave y'all a lot of production. Caleb Williams gave y'all a lot of hero plays that he converted. Caleb Williams did this for USC offense. I looked up a stat, Harper. When USC scored more than 42 points a game last year, they lost only one game. 42 points. But if they scored anything under that, they were they went 4-5.
Yeah, they were very average.
The
Why? Why, Vincent? One word. Begins with a D.
defense.
And it has defense in it. Absolutely. Go ahead.
But I'm looking at this. Okay, I'm talking about the Trojans right now.
Sure.
You got Miller Moss, who's going to be starting his first game. After he threw for 372 yards and 6 touchdowns in the bowl game, the Holiday Bowl against Louisville, I know people on social media said that he was going to be a better player than Caleb Williams. Say he was going to replace Caleb Williams, and SC not going to miss a beat. Okay, I'm thinking in my mind, y'all played Louisville in the ball game, so I'm not going to give that much thought to that. But now you're going against LSU. Pressure going to be on you, and you're going to be playing in a whole different environment. And the question is what your defense is going to do. You got a very great offensive player in Zachariah Branch, the #1 kick returner / wide receiver in last year's recruiting class, and played real well last year with Caleb Williams. Now you're playing LSU, who has the same problem. Defense. Brian Kelly, his 3rd year, like Lincoln Riley. Okay, but the thing I'm looking at, LSU's got a pretty good quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, who's been in the system for 4 years. And he threw what? I think 385 yards, 4 touchdown effort against Wisconsin in the bowl game, and led, I believe, LSU on a 75-game winning drive. I don't know if the numbers are right, but he's been in that system. Then everybody's saying LSU lost a lot on the wide receiver front, but I guarantee you this. Remember these names, C.J. Daniels, Chris Hinton, and Kyron Lacey. LSU is not going to miss a beat. But this is the key that's going to separate me from LSU. They went out and they brought back a guy that was assistant on their staff who done a hell of a job in Missouri, and Blake Baker. Think about what Blake Baker did in Missouri last year. Darius Robinson, 1st-round pick. D. Tackle. Ty Harper, 3rd round with the Green Bay Packers. He had 4 other players that was drafted. Now he's coming back to run that LSU defense. I think LSU is going to be just a tad little better defensively than USC in this game. And I think LSU's got a better defensive player in Harold Perkins Jr. So I'm looking at this. Both coaches, it's something that said hot seat, because both of y'all are getting paid a lot of money. Hot seat. And when I think about hot seat, I think about a band out of the state of Ohio by the name of Ohio Players. They had a song called Fire. What team lose this game? The coach is going to be on the hot seat. But you know what? I got to stay in the South with the Bayou Bengals. I'm going with LSU. I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to be a hell of a quarterback. I think he's 1st-round NFL talent. I got a lot of people telling me that's part of 100 yards of football. He's the next thing coming out of LSU. And you know what? I like the kid. In his brief time under the center for LSU, he can throw that football. And I want everybody, before I give it back to you, Harper, a lot of LSU people are upset because Malik Nabels is not going to be there. Brian Thomas is not going to be there. But you know what? I told y'all, Kyron Lacey is coming through that door. C.J. Daniels is coming through that door. Chris Hinton is coming through that door. And LSU might have the best tight end in the country in Mason Taylor. And you know who his daddy is? Jason, Hall of Famer. You know who his aunt is? Joy Taylor, lead host on Fox Sports. I'm going with the Bayou Bengals. Back to you, Mr. Harper.
Well, I think it's a pretty good choice. You know, I think there's some trouble brewing in USC with the Trojans right now. And if you can't stop anybody, and defensively last year, they were 123rd in the nation. You want to get yourself fired from a job, you just finish USC at 123. They gave up just under 35 points a ball game. Here's another thing, Vincent. SC hasn't been recruiting the same. They have 1 5-star. They've been losing a lot of kids to either Oregon, to Washington, a couple maybe to Stanford, but UCLA, you can't do that in that town. You cannot lose your best kids and have them go somewhere else. 1 5-star, only 8 4-stars, and 8 3-stars. That's 7 total from the ESPN 300. SC's got to get some things changed around there. It's a great campus. Its history is as good as anybody that's out there. But LSU, Last year, they were number 3 in passing, number 11 in rushing. They were number 1 in total defense and scoring, 45.5. Yes, I know that there's a lot of guys that aren't there. They've graduated. They've moved on. They're in the NFL right now. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are forever tied together in the draft, right? Going 1 and 2. But who is going to replace quicker? I think LSU has the nod there. I think they pull. I'm not going to say it's an upset, but it'll be a road victory for them, even though it's a neutral site. That's a road trip for them. Not so much SC. Yes, they got to pack their bags, but it's a short 45-minute flight. So anything else? Last words? I know we didn't get all the games that are out there. We pick 7 every week. Vincent, your thoughts? Final.
You forgot something, my brother. You was going to get a 901 some respect today.
Oh, I forgot. You're right. What am I talking about? North Alabama at Memphis. Tell me what you think.
I'm going to be honest with you, Harper. I'm a very proud guy, proud of the Memphis program. That's where I'm from. And some being from that city that brings a lot of love and respect. And back in the days, I can be honest, I can't believe that Memphis is even being mentioned in the college football playoff. But I got to give credit first of all to Mike Norrell. He set the foundation in his years when he was coach at Memphis. Then Ryan Silverfield has took it to a next level. They got a hell of a football team. They got a very good player in Chandler Martin, who's from the Atlanta metro area at the linebacker position. But when I think about when they mention Memphis as a potential college football playoff team, and I'm hearing that, it just brings back the history of Keith Simpson, Eric Harris, Daryl Martin, Robert Livingston, Keith Wright, D'Angelo Williams, Isaac Bruce, Tim Harris, Eric Fairs. Man, it just brings back Lloyd Patterson, Tordell Milliton, Gary Knowlton, the 901, baby. And you know what? The third game of the year, they travel to Tallahassee and they play Florida State. And I'm going to say this. Like Samuel L. Jackson said in the movie Durango, Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Don't let Memphis pull that upset. Don't let them pull that upset. The 901 is back in the house, baby, from a football standpoint. Kudos to the Tigers, baby. And memories to Rex Dockery, because he had a vision when he took this job back in 82, died in a plane crash, tragically. And he had that Memphis program going into the right direction. I remember his last year, I believe in 83, the Tigers went 6-4 that year, but they beat 4 SEC teams. And that program was at another level. And when he died in that plane crash with one of the most talented players in the history of Memphis football from a high school level, Charles Greenhill, that broke my heart. That was devastating to the city and to the people of Memphis, Tennessee. But to see where we at now, in the 901 in the house, it's got to be nice. The Memphis Tigers. That's all I got to say, Harper. Thank you. And bless you here on college football today.
Yep, absolutely. We want to wrap up today, and thank you for streaming with us. We appreciate it. On 100 Yards of Football, I'm Harper LeBel along with Vincent Turner, and we've also got Jeremiah Long as our producer today. Thanks for being a part of 100 Yards of Football. We're grateful to you being a part of the show. Thank you for listening. We're going to follow up with you next week. We'll go over some of the games and the results that we had, and we'll have a new Super 7 that we'll talk to you about when we return. Look forward to visiting with you next time on 100 Yards of Football.